Thank you so much. Last panel, fireside chat of the day, Eric and Julian. Julian always brings this huge energy to the room. He's wonderful. And Eric is our main sponsor of the day. I think he left or he's somewhere near here. He was so easy to work with. Hello, hi. Yeah, appears behind me. Yeah, he's so wonderful to work with, so easy. He's like, oh, don't worry, we got this. They do. Wonderful. I just wanted to give a couple of thank yous to people because I always forget. We talked about Noon Energy. Eric, we talked about Canary Media. We have Julian. We have Jeff Johnson from Canary Media. I don't know where he is. And then Jeff Sentra. Oh, sorry. Yes, Jeff Johnson was someone else. Yeah, I've been confusing them all day. Yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to thank Rina, the Master of Ceremony for the day. She's been working very, very hard for the past 5 months, I guess. Yeah, a lot of hard work. Caitlin, who was our Master of Ceremony yesterday, she's fighting fires somewhere around here today. Jing, our CFO, there you go. She's over here. She has been the biggest supporter of the Battery Saloon in the last year or so. Julia Grinchman from JP Morgan, one of our first partners and sponsors, and Ingrid, I saw her, she was somewhere. Laura and Matthew from 90. If you see them, just say them, just thank you. They have been wonderful. And Neil, our volunteering lead, who is also fighting fires somewhere. There has been a lot of fires today. Hopefully you didn't notice it, but yeah, we have been firefighting all day. And Clint, our videographer, who has been with us for the past 1 year or so, he's wonderful. And the best panelist of the summit, just because I'm moderating. I have one bad news, one good news. Bad news, we lost 2 panelists. One of them, Eli, is unfortunately sick. He has COVID, and Kenzo thought the event was canceled. I don't know how that happened. Good news is, oh, one more bad news, sorry. John from Rondo is not going to be able to make it today. It seems like he's sick as well. The good news is that we have a very good person joining the next panel. You're going to love it, so it's a surprise. Rina will have the honor to share that news with you. Anyways, let's get it started. My name is Sama. I'm the founder and president of the Battery Saloon. You have the honor of seeing me for the first time during the summit. Lucky you. He's the one who always takes me serious. Anyways, yeah, I started my career as a research scientist. I worked a lot on manufacturing exergy efficiency and recovering waste heat for power plants. And then somehow I ended up in automotive doing human thermal perception stuff. And then I ended up in data centers. And then I ended up doing viral cross-contamination prevention for COVID-19. And then here we are. I was part of the manufacturing team for Lucid Motors, and I recently joined Rondo. And our team from Rondo is sitting over there. My manager is there, so this is really stressful. Rondo Energy, we have a big piece of brick sitting over there that the engineering team from the building has been giving me such a hard time for how heavy this piece of brick is. So please, for all of the effort that has been gone into bringing this piece of brick into this building, just take a look and talk to our team. They're wonderful. All right. As I mentioned yesterday, I don't like introducing people because I do such a bad job, so I'm going to just tell you their names and they're going to take care of it. So we have Catherine Carmichael, who's the VP of Supply Chain at Form Energy. Thank you for joining us. We have our, yes, please. Who was that? Go ahead. Wonderful. Tom, you already met Tom. Tom is Stepien, CEO of Amprius, who I also invited him to join the panel because he's one of the most relevant people to be on this panel, and he said yes. Well, thank you so much. And then we have Shane Tragethon, my very good friend, who is the Chief Commercial Officer from ReElement. Wonderful. And then I would like to give you a couple of minutes to talk about yourselves, your experience, your expertise, and whatever resonates with you. Let's start with you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Catherine Carmichael, I lead our supply chain organization at Form Energy. Form is a long-duration energy storage company that is scaling in iron air chemistry I think noon was just before us, so you've heard the 100 hours. But yeah, I have been at Form basically building the supply chain for an iron air battery from the ground up over the past 4+ years. And my team handles all of the material procurement for the battery product itself, as well as all of the manufacturing capex for supporting production of our product in our West Virginia facility. And before Form, I was at Tesla. I led the energy business supply chain there. Was there for about 4 years, heavily focused on integrating what was the Solar City business into what is now today Tesla Energy. And started my career as a research scientist in chemistry, and have always been very, very passionate about tackling problems, material problems. I love hardware, I love materials, and doing things that can scale to massive scale. So I'll talk a little bit about that today on the supply chain side and Form side. But yeah, very happy to be here, and I'll pass it over.
Great. When I think of Saloon, I think of swinging doors, dust, and drinks. I think we are standing between you and drinks, so we'll try to make this quick. Tom Stepien, I'm with Amprius. Amprius is a silicon anode provider here in Fremont in the East Bay, if you're new to the area. We're a public company. It's different if you're private companies. Form's private. Our friend here is also private, but that will change on both sides. You are private still, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Still private.
Okay. Any inkling of anything to share here or no? No?
No comment.
Okay, no comment. All right. I'll put my job here is to put the other panelists on the spot as opposed to actually answer the question.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay. Well, I guess what comes around goes around. So, been in and around batteries for a while. Been in the Valley for 30 some odd years. I did this presentation earlier today, and I showed a picture of Jerry Sanders, and nobody knew who he was, even though when I first got to the Valley, he was famous. So that dates me and dates my experience. That's it.
Hey everyone, Shane Tragethon, ReElement Technologies. We're doing something really unique, and that's critical mineral refining using liquid chromatography in the US. That includes battery minerals, but it's also rare earth elements, germanium, gallium. A lot of the, not just to power the batteries, but also for circuit boards and other electronics as well. Previously, I started my career in the US Navy as a nuke, studied biochemistry, took a few detours working for Red Bull, working in Iraq for the Department of Defense, but most of my career has been with the US Department of State, primarily in Africa, living in Senegal and Niger, but working across the continent. Been with ReElement about 3 years now, and great to meet you all.
Thank you so much. Shane and I met through a mutual friend who's building the first gigafactory in Africa, Dishan Naidu, who's the CEO of AfriVolt. So Shane does a lot of business in Africa and Middle East and Asia as well. He's always traveling. He's always somewhere. His time zone is TBD. Yeah. Shane, you're kind of like ReElement is kind of like the end and beginning of everything, like recycling and mining. I don't know where you really sit. Are you upstream or are you downstream? But there was a lot of conversations that I was hearing from people that all of the batteries that we imported from China at some point is going to be recycled and is going to get back to the supply chain. I would like to hear your comment about it. But my sense is like, well, that's not going to be enough. Like, how is going to be the quality in terms of like scaling, in terms of like affordability? Is it even like economical? From the commercial standpoint, how do you see that statement play out?
Great question. I guess I'll pose a question to the audience just to kind of start out. Any guesses on what the most developed recycling system in the US is, economics for a product? Nailed it. Been around for 100 years. 1960s, they started collection, $2 billion industry today. The answer is over time, yes, it will get to that point. Right now, the economy is based on shredding the batteries, and most of the black mass actually ends up back in China. We end up buying the lithium, the manganese, and the cobalt twice in many cases. That's not economic over the long term. When it comes to growth of the recycling market and being able to rely only on that, there is no way that only recycling for any product can support a growing market. So it's going to be a hybrid approach of, as the increase of recycled materials moves into the supply chain, it can reduce the reliance on mined ores. But over time, it's going to take a blend of both approaches to be able to fully develop the industry.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like we have a very diverse panel today, so we're gonna attack this commercialization scale from like very different standpoints and angles, and I feel like recycling was a good one to start because that's where everything ends. So thank you so much for that and for engagement from the from the audience. So Tom, you have many more gray hair than I do.
Ouch.
That's why I don't dye my hair, because I can brag about how much experience I have. I'm not that old, by the way. Maybe I am. So Tom, you have like 35 years of experience in advanced manufacturing. And I am curious how things have changed since like 20, 30 years ago in terms of what is my manufacturing expertise or experienced labor, what is how much we're offshoring and onshoring, domestic manufacturing. What has been the trend since 20, 30 years ago, and what is you think the trend going to be in the next 10 years? And I put you on a spot, I'm sorry. But you're a good person to put on a spot.
It's all fair. It's all good. So what has changed? Look, I think 20, 30 years ago when lithium ion, the biggest battery by technology, right? At least in the technology world, maybe not in the automotive lead acid type thinking, was just invented 30 some odd years ago, right? 1989, I think it was, at Sony. So what has changed is, oh my gosh, it's just become this incredible 10% per year CAGR cost reduction, this huge economies of scale. CATL is the world's largest, and they just announced earnings last week. I mean, they are a machine. There's a lot of alternative chemistries, right? Catherine will tell you a bit about that. But that has just been this industry that came from nowhere, so an invention and a commercialization in Sony in Japan, is now arguably the most important technology for some of our warfare with drones, for some of our vehicles, for a lot of what we use on a daily basis, whether it's iPhones or laptops. I mean, it's just in that span of time when my hair wasn't gray, it has really, really changed.
And your hair has changed too. Wonderful. So we talked about supply chain a little bit, Catherine. I'm coming to you. So you are VP of Supply Chain at Form Energy. I work with Tesla as well. And as Tom mentioned, you're working on alternative material. So iron is cheap. Iron is more workable. We have more experience with that. But also there's some doubts about the technology that we're not going to talk about that in terms of efficiency. But how do you think the lack of resilience in our current supply chain is changing innovation? Is it encouraging it, or it's like paralyzing the founders?
I mean, I would say, to answer that, so I mean, innovation is, born out of scarcity, right? So you have scarcity, you're going to innovate your way out of it. That's what humans do. One of the things I would say for Form is that energy is becoming scarce, right? The trend is clear. So the innovation that comes out of that is, yes, we have a 30-year-old industry now that has scaled, and it has reached their theoretical minimums on their capex costs and their material costs, and it's driving great innovation. So it's driving innovation in the space of alternative electrode materials. It's driving innovation in the space of alternative chemistries. Where Form comes in is a response to the scarcity of actual energy, not just the supply, and is tackling that through thinking through how do you scale a technology that is complementary to the technology. You're not going to replace lithium ion out there. It is ingrained in everything we do, all of our devices. And you have to look at the use case and say, as we scale our energy, production and our energy needs, what else is out there that can help solve those problems? So I would say form is, you talk about kind of efficiency. It's a grid reliability asset as a battery, and it has been crafted all the way from the selection of the materials itself. So the iron air selection was based on the entitlement on cost, the entitlement on the performance roadmap that you can get, and the scalability. So that was what was very exciting to me. I left Tesla to come and basically build something from the ground up that was not reliant. I worked on the battery, worked with the battery teams at Tesla, and there's a lot of nasty things that you have to come up against on when you think about scaling to massive scale. You hit constraints. You start thinking about recycling. You start thinking about alternative ways to get around some of the critical minerals or conflict minerals. So the iron air chemistry solves the cost floor, and then you solve that in a different way where you're not going and providing the same duration. Obviously, you're providing longer duration, and you're basically a reliability asset that is now seeing a big use case in data centers as they come on. And instead of just thinking about traditional peak shaving, you're thinking about multi-day need for storage on the grid. And so that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. There was thoughts around that, but there was no actual product there. So the selection of the chemistry and then the building out of our supply chain was very thoughtful. And where we've ended is we have a 85% domestic supply chain for a battery that's made in the U.S. that has no direct, exposure to FEOC, where we're not sourcing, FEOC materials directly, and that was intentional. It was done from the sense of, if we want to scale this to make the impact that we need to make, we need to be thinking about the challenges at scale. And there, if we go and do what we want to do, there will be those challenges, but we have some time now because we've built a good foundation. So I would say the scarcity is definitely an impact for the existing technologies that are out there, and part of that is thinking other ways that we, I think there's companies that are solving that. The other answer is going and looking at complementary alternate technologies that can help solve the problems that we have.
Basically, diversifying the solution that can address different markets at the same time.
Yes.
So you talk about the challenges of scale. What are those challenges for Form Energy, as much as you can share with us?
I mean, this is the phase. This is the fun phase. I guess this is why I joined. I joked that we took on the big challenge of, we built a factory, right? And we're manufacturing our product. And so the adage of prototyping is hard, and manufacturing and scaling, or prototyping is easy, manufacturing at scale is hard. That is where we are. So we have our volume equipment landed in the factory, and we've hit our yields at rate for those equipment sets. And then you look at that and you say, what's the next tranche, right? How do you go most efficiently scale this beyond the current capacity that we have? And so we're in that phase of just going through the manufacturing ramp, which I find very, very fun because it forces innovation. We have great conversations around, do we insource this or outsource this? What is the best path to success near term? So I'd say the challenges are just, we have a massive pipeline. There's a ton of demand for energy storage, and now there is a growing market for long duration storage, and we have to deliver on that promise. So scaling is our mandate over the next few years, and we're going through that now. And
you got a DOE grant as well, I believe.
We do, we have a DOE grant that's supporting our manufacturing in West Virginia.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So Tom, building on that conversation, you have seen a couple of products. You have been also CEO at Southside Technology and seen a couple of products come to commerce or to market. So where do you think when you're scaling, or the most challenges lie, and things break? When is that? What is that breaking point usually?
Yeah, so a lot of the scaling breaks down to figuring out the when and the how, right? So even before Amprius, at other earlier stage battery companies, when do you have enough comfort in the technology to start to spend outside of the technology? Is it a certain maybe we're familiar with the technology readiness level, right? A commercial product is 9 and a brand new idea is 0 and somewhere in between, right? So at what point do you do that? Some of the mistakes I've made a lot of mistakes. Some of the mistakes I made were scaling the non-technical stuff too early because, oh, shoot, you got to go back. It wasn't quite as robust or finalized or mature as we want it to be. Some of that was because investors were pulling us, but we didn't have enough courage to say, no, 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 we're not ready yet. So the when part is super important. But the how also is really important. You could take an approach like Catherine outlined, where some of what is put together in their battery is outsourced, but they have their own factory in West Virginia. Amprius started having its own factory and got a DOE grant for a factory in Colorado, but then walked away from it, which was a tough decision to not accept $50 million. It turned out to be the right decision. So the how do you scale? We've decided to scale on the backs of and partnership with contract manufacturers because they, the contract manufacturing partners that build lithium-ion batteries, can do it better than we can. And you have advantages of choice. We got 4 in China, 3 in South Korea, and 1 and more coming in the US. So, okay, you can kind of mix and match and play one off against the other. You give up some margin, nothing's ever free, right? You have some trade-offs. So getting the when part as a young company, man, super important. And then the how is how do you do lots of ways to get a product delivered. That's what, at least for us, it breaks down to.
So basically, you have this technology and you de-risk it by working with contract manufacturers who have more experience, which is makes a lot of sense. Well, Shane, building upon that, talking about manufacturing, but going a little bit beyond that, like partnerships. So you're a recycling company and mining recycling company. And I think you very much depend on batteries that have to be recycled. So tell me about that partnership a little bit. And like, do you like, at which point do you make those kind of partnership? How much do you rely on them? What is the level of like collaboration you have? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. On the scaling part, it's funny, all three of us are taking different approaches to scaling. Our approach, we sometimes joke, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And on that, we are kind of taking a Silicon Valley approach of constant iteration, constant innovation, and knowing that our kind of phase one is not exactly what is expected, and we can build on that. Now, how do we get there? Whenever you're scaling, you're working on a few different things that you have to do simultaneously. You have to start with an offtake. You need to start with, you need to have a feedstock. You need to have financing for that. The banks would love a take-or-pay offtake, a take-or-pay feedstock agreement, and then you're matching up scaling as well. The other part of that is this is a whole new supply chain, and the whole country's building the plane as we're flying it. You have to have the companies that are upstream and downstream building at the same rate as you, because if they can't purchase your offtake, it's going to hurt everything downstream. So the approach we've taken to this is build to scale what we think it is and build to what our offtake partners request. So we start with the offtake and those commitments and understanding what the demand is. And then we go out and find that and build relationships for partners. One of our great partners is ERI, a recycling company, and a major partner to provide us materials. We also work directly with the OEMs and sourcing black mass or actual batteries. LFP batteries are actually easy. There's a tolling, or not a tolling, but an agreement where companies get paid, let's say $5 a kilogram just to take the batteries away because they're a hazard. With us, we're recycling the LFP batteries. We're like, hey, just bring them to us. We'll take it. And so we've got really great ability to gather a lot of LFP feedstock on that. When it comes to NMC, it's also working with the other aggregators in the industry, which are varied throughout.
Awesome. Shane, also you have been working with U.S. Department of State, leading their objective, like diplomatic, what was it? Objectives. Yeah, that was right. Oh, it's hard to be an immigrant. Anyways, and then you have been working with building partnerships with allied nations as well for a lot of like resourcing, strategic resourcing as well. I'm wondering like how that, like, what is our approach to globalization, especially in the fragile supply chain that we have? You're trying to move away from China, all the fiat and like tariffs. Are we trying to build new allies with other nations than China or a couple of select countries? Or we're just focusing on domestic manufacture and how realistic it is, especially the timeline?
That's a tough question, and I can't speak for the U.S. government, but I can tell you kind of how we look at it. It all comes down to economics. If the price of the materials that go into the U.S. products is so expensive that the U.S. company can't sell the products, then you don't have a supply chain. So what we do is we focus on cost first. We build relationships and partnerships in the private sector in these companies to try and provide the lowest cost material from start to finish, and that's recycled products. We're getting recycled products out of Southeast Asia today, non-Chinese, products out of Africa as well that go into our system. That's the short term, is building up this capacity in the US. We've set up partnerships in South Africa, recently announced a partnership in Japan with Mitsubishi Materials Corporation. And as we see this, there's two approaches. If we can bring the prices down by producing in the US, we can start to be competitive. As we take our technology to other countries as well to drive that product into the US, we can reduce the logistics cost. The further you can compress earlier pieces in the supply chain and remove that parasitic logistics cost, the lower the overall cost of the end product is going to be. So we've got the ability to still produce material for the US supply chain from allied nations at a competitive cost and bringing that cost level down so the US companies can stay competitive with China.
Any comments from you too? Anything to add?
You know, the world's dividing. We all feel that, right? There's China and ex-China. The NDA law that got signed the week before Christmas put a stake in the ground that said, thou shalt meet the ex-China by a certain date, 20 months from now, for new programs, a little bit later for existing Department of War programs. So the cost is going to be a real issue. So at least it's clear, right? For years it's been unclear, but it is clear what the deadlines are and what success is. There's some debate about 95% and what's an active material, so that's going to get clarified, I think, soon. But then the reckoning is going to come, right? We have conversations that are saying, great, you're outside of China, we want your batteries. Okay, cool, you know they're going to cost a bit more. Oh, no, we want the China prices, but we want it. So that's the discussion and the reckoning that we feel, and everybody feels that, right? That's coming. So we have clarity, but there's a lot of activity that has to occur in the next little bit less than 2 years to really realize the goal, which is to have a vibrant supply chain and battery manufacturing capability. Good news is there's money being put to work, right? There's a DOE solicitation. It's due tomorrow. There's a bunch of proposed programs, say that 5 times fast, that is in this new defense re-up that they're trying to get. So at least there's money behind some of the intent. So watch the space.
Did you have anything to add, Catherine?
I had a question, actually. Do you feel like the U.S. manufacturing base is ready to support that pivot away from China? I'm taking your job away from you. I'm just actually very curious.
Please do.
So today, no, right? If you look at the manufacturing, there's several gigafactories, right? Catherine's former employer has, I think, coined the term, and in Nevada they have 14 lines that are making some crazy million cells a day, or just an absurd number of cells, right? And Panasonic is in Kansas, and SK On is in Georgia, and LG is in wherever, Midwest, and Goshen is in Illinois. So today, and some of those plants are going through divorces, right? LG is splitting up with Ford, and GM is splitting up with SDI. So a lot of that is being refigured out as EVs. That a lot of those divorces are because of the EVs. And a lot of those companies are doing student body right to work on stationary. So I think some of the foundation elements are there. There's 22 gigawatts just at Commerce, Georgia for SK. There's equal number, double gigawatt hours per year at other of these factories. They need to figure out the prices, the costs, the supply chain, et cetera. Can they do it in 20 months? It'll be close.
So what is the best way to de-risk commercialization at this climate? So we experienced something similar during COVID, right? I was working for this EV parts manufacturing company, and when COVID hit, we basically hit the wall. There was nothing coming from China. There was like national shutdown. And there was not a single day that I was not being called by Tesla engineers past 7 p.m. and yelled at for things that were out. Thank you. Out of my control, your people. So if I'm a company commercializing right now, scaling, and I need to stay competitive and especially cost competitive, what would be your recommendation? Like, what am I supposed to do?
One of the, going back to how do we, I mean, there is a clear shift to domestic manufacturing, especially in the defense space, and then you see that with just the focus. I think it's a pretty bipartisan topic. And one of the things, and I actually did learn this from my time at Tesla, was as we go through this industrialization process for new technologies, you need to bring, I say this from the supply chain leader perspective, but you need to bring your supply base along with you. They need to understand what the shape of the curve is going to look like as you go through scaling a new technology. It's lumpy. It's you're figuring out how your customer really wants their product, or how you get your lines perfectly matching. And so you have these periods of kind of imbalances, and I think part of it is we, collectively as an industry, need to start building out that supply base in the U.S. to educate them on, what are the quality standards that are going to be expected in this industry that meet the needs for the products we have to go and build, and then how to actually handle and kind of build up flexible resources. One of the main things that I look for in our supply base is that flexibility. We are an earlier stage company that is scaling, so they need to have proven capacity and proven quality, but they also need to be able to go through this period of kind of the ramp, which is the painful part. So I think one of the big commercialization risks is embedded in the supply chain, and you need to make sure that, I think companies are now realizing they have to look a lot more deeply into that. They can't just hand it off to their CMs completely. You need to know that they have a plan that solves for potential different scenarios in the regulatory environment, and that also they have the plan to scale. So that's the supply chain perspective, but I do think it is really critical, and it's getting more attention now that people have to have visibility into the potential bottlenecks, and they're actually being proactive and going in and either investing in it or making sure that those partners are the right partners to go through that journey.
On the what do you do part, I think this panel is interesting, right? Because you have three incredibly innovative companies, right? Liquid chromatography to do some of the separation instead of traditional methods, right? An iron-based battery, and iron is dirt cheap. Dirt might be more expensive than iron. And a silicon anode that Amprius took them 14, 15 years to figure out is a very innovative thing. So what we do, if we are the US, is you keep innovating. What's interesting about some of the changes and not just our administration, but really a mindset, this globalization is over, is now, okay, we're actually going to think about making something in this country, which I think is good, because if you can keep the innovation and at the same time have some portion of it made here in this country, there's goodness that's going to come out of that.
And I would look at this from two different ways. I'll start with the macro level on this. In order for a company to be successful through these times where the whole supply chain is speeding up or scaling at the same time, it's going to take something that we're not used to, and that's fast, patient capital. Like, a lot of financing entities aren't used to investing in, one, infrastructure, and two, waiting a long time for the return on this, and three, dealing with a bunch of speed bumps to get there. These projects are not cheap. It's not just an equity investment, it's debt investment. And debt does not like speed bumps, it does not like risk, it likes consistent returns and getting the money back. And so finding out ways to balance that from a financing level gives the company the flexibility that they need to be able to get through the hurdles for the rest of this supply chain that's being built. If I were to look at this on a government level, I would look at this through loan guarantees, which can remove some of the risk from the banking sector and the debtors, because that increases the kind of the ability for the underwriters to lend to these massive projects, because some of that risk is taken away. If I look at it from a supply chain standpoint, it is diversity of feedstock, it's diversity of offtakes, it's building up, because we really don't know who's going to be the most successful in the end of this. And this comes from not just domestically, but internationally. We are pulling from a bunch of different countries and building that supply chain little by little. And we are building it from countries and people that have traditionally only exported to China. So it's trying something new. And I think that creativity and that flexibility, as you said, is what's really going to kind of support the innovation that it's going to take to build this U.S. supply chain.
Julia, you were nodding. Did you have anything to add? Awesome. Do we have time? Okay, awesome. Maybe one more question, and then, yeah, we're going to open the floor for one more my question, and then your questions. Yeah, sometimes when I work with founders, I ask them, is your product your technology or your manufacturing method or your supply chain strategy? And it seems like right now people who are innovating have to like be active and all. Good for you, founders. I feel you. Yeah, wonderful. So one question that I have, I think this is going to be our last question before Rina is mad at me, is that do we have enough recycling capacity in the US for all the batteries that are going to retire in the next 10 years? And if not, what is our backup plan?
I think that's kind of a complicated question. Do we have the recycling capacity today for the next 10 years? Yeah, I think, will we be able to scale that capacity within the US to match the requirement for the next 10 years? Yeah, I think if we lean into it, we absolutely can. Right now, there's plenty of shredding capacity because a lot of black mass is still being shipped to China. So the choke point is the refining, something that we specialize in. Are we able to scale in the next few years? Yeah, absolutely, to whatever that demand is. What I will say, it's one of the challenges that we see for the battery companies, and this is across the board, and when you talk to them and say, why is it like this? They say, well, because it's always been like this. And the qualification for, let's say, lithium or cobalt or nickel going into a battery can be 1.5 to 2 years to get in there. So a company that is a supplier has 1.5 to 2 years of qualifications to get material into a battery, and that makes it really difficult. If there was the emphasis on how can we get this material qualified, how can we make sure this is what it is, and we're talking base materials here. We're talking very simple products. And understanding that, you can actually help the companies and the suppliers get up to speed faster. But can we scale in the US? Absolutely.
I like that answer. It warms my heart. Thank you. I lied. I have one more question. What's your advice for fellow founders, especially younger founders? One single advice.
So figure out what your onlyness is, right? If you're going to be, Jung Woo's here from South 8, if you're going to be a cold weather battery, focus on that. If you're going to have a 100-hour battery, first and foremost, and then hire slow, fire fast, right? So find people who can join you on the journey. This is founder, right? Journey over time, and you're going to need different talents at different periods of time. And then if you figure out, oh my God, I got the wrong person, they're probably feeling it too. So there's ways to get them to leave, but don't delay that. I mean, it sounds cruel, but it's better for them and it's better for the company. Those would be my 2 pieces of advice.
Product market fit, I think, just reiterating some of that. But yeah, I think that's very important, right? You don't want to have to scale a technology and then find a market for it. So you have to do that in parallel and ideally first. So, yeah.
I would say 2 parts. One, really understand what you're best at. Like what is your product better at than anyone else in the world? And then the other part of that is kind of going along with the product market fit is don't be scared to pivot markets on that. If you look at most billion-dollar companies, their original idea was not what they actually made the money on. Like, you've got a great idea today, but just like you're writing a first draft of a document, you're going to go back and edit it. You might scrap it. You might need to start over. That's okay. And don't be scared.
Awesome. Yeah, just one last note. I feel like it's important for founders to note that you can't sit in your cubicle and innovate and then get out and show it to people. You have to be out there and then see the needs and then build something to meet that demand. That's one thing that I learned from my startup fatigue. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor for questions. We have how much time? 5 minutes? Okay. Who's going first? And if anyone needs microphone, I can donate mine. No questions? Oh.
On recycling, when you're obtaining the feedstock, right, are you paying them for that, or are they paying you to like take it off their hands?
Depends on what the feedstock is. We deal with a bunch of battery materials as well as let's say magnet materials. Magnet materials, we pay for those. Battery materials, as I said, with the word I was looking for earlier was gate fee. And companies are paid with a gate fee to get rid of the product. We take those and just receive those for free. With other batteries, let's say NMC black mass, we can actually pay for that as well. And with us, we do the payables off lithium versus many companies that do it off the nickel and the cobalt. But it varies on what the product is.
Can you talk a little bit more about the LFP versus NMC? Because I've heard that, like, you know, the whole industry shifted to LFP, but there's like not a lot of value to the lithium. But you just said that you have value to the lithium. I've heard that others can't find the value there.
You got some LFP black mass on you? You selling? What do you got? With us, yeah, and that's one of the benefits of our technology. The traditional legacy technology, and this goes for rare earths, this goes for battery recycling, is solvent extraction. And the payables are based off of the nickel and the cobalt because that's what they pull out of the black mass. The lithium comes off last, and it, in many cases, is a byproduct. So if you have lower lithium in a battery, you can actually, in black mass, it can actually be a higher value product. With us, our technology pulls off the lithium first. So technically, if we wanted to just pull off the lithium and then sell the rest of the material, we've actually made money and created a higher value product. But for us, if we've already got it in solution, then we'll separate out the nickel and the cobalt as well. So we just look at it differently, and we're very economic on LFP batteries. For the ferrophosphate, we actually send the iron oxide to U.S. companies to recycle, and so it's very efficient.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for joining this panel. Every time I have a panel discussion, I'm like, this is the best panel I'm moderating, and then the next one is the best. So this was the best so far. Thank you for being here. The next fireside...
Till tomorrow.
Until tomorrow. The next fireside chat is going to be awesome. It's going to be sitting between you and the happy hour, but I promise you, you're going to love it more than the happy hour. And Rena is going to announce it. The guest is a surprise guest because, as I mentioned, John is not here, but the good news is that the guest is going to be awesome and you're going to love him. Well, thank you so much, and see you in the happy hour. Thank you, everyone.